Welcome to the Core Show. This is episode 14, and thank you all for joining today. I'm Ranjeet Kaur from the UK, and here with me is my co-host Gurinder Kaur from Melbourne. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Benji, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm good as well, thanks.
So today's topic is the power of 3D art, and our guest today is Taran Singh from the UK. And 3D art is a type of artwork in a specific way that creates an optical illusion that tricks the mind into believing in actual 3D, like three-dimensional. So it sounds complicated and fascinating at the same time. So that's why we have Taran Singh here today to explain all of this. So let's welcome our guest to the show and find out more.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Fateh. How are you, Taran Singh?
I'm very good, yeah. Thank you for having me on your show.
No problem. So if you can tell us and the audience a little bit about yourself, please.
Yeah, so my name's Taran Singh from Birmingham, UK. I'm basically a 3D artist, so I produce kind of projects, whether it's architecture, objects, or kind of animations in 3D, basically using computer-aided design software. And I've been doing that for the last kind of 20 years, and especially what I've been interested in is doing 3D models of Sikh characters, basically Sheed Singhs and Singhniya, people from our history, our past, who I think we want our younger generation to remember their stories. So the best way I thought I could use my skill to kind of do that is to create statues of and 3D models of our kind of great Shaheeds.
This is fantastic, and Benji, you seem to be on mute. And yes, so that's really fantastic, Taran. And I saw your website and the work that you have been doing. I'm pretty sure we're going to have a lot of exciting talks about this work today. So that's a great introduction. So please tell us something about 3D technology in itself. What's the difference, and how new this technology is?
Yes, so I think what's happening at the moment is computer processing power has been advancing over the last 20 years really, really fast, exponentially. So we're at a point now where, like 20 years ago when I started, it was very difficult to be able to produce this sort of artwork. It used to take a long time. The software was very expensive. Computing power was limited. So it was quite hard. So we were creating quite simplistic objects. And just to give you an idea, like 20 years ago when we were creating kind of one image, it would take anything from 8 to 12 hours to produce one image. And we're at a point now where we can produce the same image in like a fraction of a second. So we're able to create real-time animations now. So computer processing power, graphics power has advanced kind of so much, and it's speeded up kind of everything at the moment. So we're able to produce a lot more, produce a lot faster, but the demand is also becoming higher now as well.
That's great. Thank you so much. And also for those who have joined the show, thanks firstly for being here. And if anyone wants to ask Taran Singh any questions regarding his artful career, inspiration or anything, then please leave comments and we'll together all be involved with today's talk show. So Taran, what does your artwork represent?
So I think my artwork kind of, there's two sides to my work. My actual career, my work has become kind of in this field as well. But when I actually started off, I had no intention of actually becoming a 3D professional. It was just purely, it was like 1997, 1998, though, that sort of time. And we were kind of doing camps together at the Gurdwara, and we were doing like stuff with kids. And I was realizing that we were doing these camps and it was very difficult because we were kind of with kind of 20 or 30 children in one room. And I thought, how can we kind of communicate with a lot more people using kind of like online? So I set up the first kind of Sikh art website in 1999. and I kind of started just putting some of my artwork up on there and doing some artwork. So purely, it all started off from kind of trying to do kind of Sikhi Prajar, really, to tell the stories of our history mainly. And so history has been like a common kind of theme throughout a lot of my work, and it all started from there. And when I was kind of doing posters, doing a bit of graphic design, and I would put my hand to anything really, anything that needed to be done, because it was all seva really. There was nobody, it wasn't kind of like work. So we all just tried to do the best that we could, doing like posters, doing designs, doing informational leaflets, that sort of stuff that we're giving out at college and school and uni and stuff like that. And it all kind of like exploded from there. And it actually turned out that because of all the seva that I was doing, what I didn't realize was I was actually doing a lot of production work. So I was actually getting used to kind of just getting a brief from a client and producing, an image or, a piece of work, and then getting it out very, very fast. So we were becoming, and so it became kind of like, my mum used to always complain that the phone's always ringing, because we used to get lots of phone calls about people who wanted stuff done, and so she used to complain a lot about that. But the thing is, throughout that period, I kind of learned a lot of experience. So there's a lot of working experience. So through that, when I started going out, I didn't really do well at school. So when I did go out, start working, I was working in computing first, or repairing computers and things like that. And then the design work was always like a side theme. And what ended up happening is I realized that I'd got like 4 or 5 years worth of experience. So when I was going out for interviews and stuff, I already had a massive portfolio of work, even though it was all seva work. But people would look at the work and say, oh yeah, you produced, it looked like I've been working for like 4 or 5 years. So my career kind of came off the back of the seva really, because of that.
That's really fantastic, Taran. So how long did you actually did all this seva? Like, was it like a year's kind of work, or was it just like some months that you were involved, and then you got this much portfolio built up?
Yeah, I think it was over the space of like 4 to 5 years, really. And throughout that time, I was always experimenting as well. I was always interested in special effects and games as well. I used to play a lot of games. So I saw the power of games because they're so immersive. I thought, it's a really good way to engage young people. So I started teaching myself and learning kind of the different kind of aspects of building kind of immersive experiences and learning about it. And it kind of worked out. It's funny the way things work out, because it ended up me going to work for kind of the Birmingham Museum and Art Gallery, and then going to work for interior design companies and architectural companies. And then when I was working for the engineering company that I worked at last, pretty much my job was to learn how to use a game engine to do interactive applications and rendering. So kind of like it kind of all kind of went in that direction. It's kind of one thing leads to another and leads to another. But I think the common denominator throughout it all was I was always producing work. Like I was always creating something. And I think that kind of the way I say it to people is I just had that inherent passion there that just drove me to carry on kind of experimenting. And even though I had loads of failures, I mean, at the beginning my work was terrible, and for many years the work was terrible, and I'm still not very happy with it. But I just thought, well, and then there's this famous thing that artists say, that it's not finished but it's done. So a lot of my work, I'm not happy with it, but it's not finished, but it's just done and it's ready to get on. So I have to move on to the next thing.
Yeah. So Taran, were you like
really
was there much work happening before you actually experimented all this? Was there any work like happening in the 3D technology in UK?
Yeah, so it was very sparse. So that it was very kind of it was very specialist at that time. There weren't very many people. Even when I went actually to one of the colleges to do a course, and I found that I knew kind of more than the person who was teaching. I was having to kind of support them, and I didn't realize I think sometimes you don't realize how much you know until you go out there and you see. So I didn't really think I was any good or anything until I went out there and I showed the knowledge that I had of the 3D software, and realized that actually throughout experimenting and trying to produce things that I couldn't produce yet, it was always kind of like pushing me. And so I've always had this goal in mind from when I was like 20 years ago, is to create kind of Seek animations and kind of characters, and I was always interested in sculpting as well. So that kind of thing is always it's always pushed me from the beginning. So it's rather than being a career thing, it's always been like a personal sort of desire that I've had to produce these sort of artworks. So yeah, so before that there wasn't that much work, and in a way I sometimes had to go in, and even now I'm finding when I'm kind of going out there. So I left work last year to run my own business. I've been running my own business for a year, and we're like a team of 4 people now. And what I'm finding is that when we're going out there, people don't really understand the 3D technology. So a large part of what we're doing is going out there and explaining to people how it works and how they can use it. So we're always trying to kind of, rather than kind of go out there and get work, we're having to kind of produce work, which is like go to people and say, oh, you're trying to do this. Did you know that you could do it in a different way? Use 3D technology to do it a bit easier. So visualize if somebody's trying to sell a real estate a building like apartments, we said that, have you ever, we could put it into VR, and you could put a VR headset on, and then you could customize the room, and all these sorts of ideas, and these continue to come out. So a lot of the work that I have done in the past, it's kind of come from generating those ideas ourselves and then presenting these to people and saying, you know what, this is a new way of doing things. And same thing happened kind of a few years ago in 2017 when we started looking at augmented reality, and I approached the Sikh Museum Initiative, and they kind of were doing an exhibition in Leicester. And so we decided to kind of say that, you know what, we could actually show Sikh objects, historical objects in 3D, because obviously we can't get access to them. So one of the biggest ones was Guru Gobind Singh Ji's armor. It's actually in a private collection in India, and I thought it's a shame that, look, we're not ever going to be able to see that because it's locked away somewhere. But it's one of our Guru's relics, it's one of their kind of personal items. And so I thought the next best thing that we could do is actually reproduce it in 3D, put it into VR, put it into augmented reality, so kids can kind of look at it and see and hold it in their hands. And so a lot of the work has come through kind of generating those ideas ourselves, and then presenting these ideas to people and kind of trying to get them on board. So that's a lot of the type of work that we're doing at the moment.
That's really awesome.
Thank you so much. I like the idea of.
I think there is a lagging of some audio issues coming up, Penji. I think you're hearing it a little bit later. Yes, Penji, please continue.
Yeah, so I like the idea of how you visualize a house and how you can give ideas to other people as well. I think that's brilliant. You could come and do that to my house. That would be amazing. But going to a real estate and giving them visual, I think that'd be great for selling as well. What's your most challenging project so far?
That's kind of difficult to say because a lot of the projects are challenging because we're always trying to do something new. But I would say the Kickstarter campaign that I did for the statue. So I did a Bhai Garja Singh statue in 2016. And the thing was, I was just at home kind of trying to create this statue. I was sculpting it digitally. I was going to sculpting class. I was going to sculpting class kind of, whenever I could, going to live drawing classes and sketching classes and things like that, just trying to learn how to kind of do figurative sculpting. And it's like a massive field. I'm still learning a lot now. Even I do a lot of my own personal study. So a lot of my time I spend doing that. And so I was trying to create this statue, and I was creating it, and I was doing research on what the clothes would look like. I was looking at old photographs, studying the stories, and I was building it, but at the same time I was kind of very struggling as well. It actually took me a long time, about 6 months to produce. And while I was doing it, a friend of mine from London, Ranjeet Singh, he come down a lot. He supported me a lot in terms of my art. He was always pushing me because I never really had the confidence to bring my artwork out or to kind of try and publish it or anything. And so he was always pushing me, saying, you should bring, you should try and get your work out there. I think people would really like it, or they would want to buy it. So I was creating this statue, and I was just going to create one for myself. So I was going to get it 3D printed and create one for myself. And he came down and he says, if you make one, he goes, make me one as well. And this kind of happened a couple of times. So every time people came down, I would say, I'm working on this, or I'd show it to someone and get their opinion. They would say, can you make one for me as well? And then Diljit kind of said to me that, why don't you put it on Kickstarter? And I kind of thought about the idea. It was really scary, but then I thought, okay, what's the worst that could happen? You know, nobody wants to buy it, and you know, it's fine. I've had that before anyway. You know, we're used to. I've been doing work for so long. Rejection is not a problem anymore, really, and we're just used to it. It's just one of those things. You kind of just move on to the next one. And so I put it onto Kickstarter, and it was really, and actually doing the Kickstarter wasn't that hard. Actually producing the statue wasn't that hard, but actually fulfilling the actual the actual production and sending out mass production of these statues was very, very difficult. So we sold, I think we sold 150 statues. We sold 12 bronzes. All around the world, and I think that was the logistics of it. Was managing how are we, because they're quite delicate as well, because they're made in resin, so they can snap quite easily. So it was like working out how we're going to post this kind of very delicate statue to kind of Australia, New Zealand, to Dubai, to America, to Canada, and dealing with the shipping requirements, and then dealing with the production, because doing one is quite easy. I've got 3D printers now. At the time I didn't have 3D printers, so that was the most challenging, doing that first Garjasing statue. Yeah, once I did that, I learned so many things, like about kind of logistics, about postage, about customer service, about getting back to clients, and making sure, and we made sure everyone was happy. So if anyone had any issues, I made sure that everyone got their statue, and I really wanted to make sure that I fulfilled it properly. And so we had some people come back with like some of the, because when I sculpted it, one thing I didn't realize was that when you actually make something smaller into a small statue, you have to exaggerate, because if you get a sword, which is like, about 5 millimeters thick or 8 millimeters thick, and you reduce it by 12 times the size to a 12-inch statue, what you get is a wafer thin sword. So like in it, which is just gonna snap. So I had to learn, like, actually I've got to kind of make this sword like about 3 or 4, 5 centimeters thick, so that when it goes down, it's not going to kind of break off. So learning all those things, that was a big challenge, but it was also the project that pushed me the most in terms of my personal development, and also in terms of my business development as well. Because I think as artists, sometimes we're very good at doing our artwork. We love doing our kind of artwork, but we hate dealing with the business side of things, and it kind of forced me to deal with that. So that was the most difficult project.
That's exactly right, Taran. I think it does happen when you are doing everything on your own and you're doing something unique. I think that does happen. So how expensive is it, like, to produce a piece of art in 3D technology?
Yeah, I think it depends really. I think the software is usually a big issue, because the software is quite expensive. But these days now, the software you can get for free now. So the software out there like Blender and Unity and Unreal and all these kind of different pieces of software mean you can get educational licenses and you can start to learn yourself. So before, we found it very hard because the licenses are very expensive. But yeah, so the software is a big issue. Hardware is also, you need to have the right equipment. So we use kind of like Cintiq tablets. So we couldn't afford those to start off with. We've only started buying that sort of stuff now when we've got project work coming in, and we're able to kind of reinvest that money into equipment. So and thing is, it's just, the main thing is just your time. It's not so much kind of it's that time investment beforehand, because there's so many different aspects that you have to study. Kind of human anatomy. You have to study kind of like form and shape and composition, and and then the sculpting part of it is a long time. So it can take kind of it's when you get to the mass production stage that it gets really expensive, because it's an economy of scale. So the more you get done, the cheaper you can make it. So people like people from like big kind of companies, they're usually getting, if they're getting kind of like a figurine made, they will get like 10,000 made. So which means that each one will be like 20 to 30 pounds each. It's very cost effective, but we're only like in our hundreds, so we get orders in our hundreds. So then we have to say, okay, when we've got 100 order, then that's kind of like more like the price of it's £100 each. So it really depends. The thing is, since that time, we've been able to, the money that I actually made on that, so we made a small bit of profit on that, and that money I reinvested into buying my own 3D printers, because at the time we were outsourcing this. So this was very, very expensive. So we were paying other people to 3D print, send to us. And then it was obviously a time cost as well, because we send it to them. They take 4 or 5 days to get back to us. And then we make iterations and changes. So now that we've got our own, we've got 2 3D printers, we've got 3D scanner, we've got our own touchscreen tablets, we've got graphic tablets and stuff like that. We've got access to the 3D software. So all this stuff means it's getting kind of cheaper for us to be able to produce work now, because we've accumulated the assets that we need.
So with all the hardware that you've mentioned just now, so what is the most creative hardware you've used?
The most creative hardware, I would say, just like I would say there'd be 2. Yes, I'd say the Cintiq tablets, which are the graphic tablets, but on the monitor, we find those really good to work on, because while you're sculpting, you get instant feedback, and it's like you're drawing on the surface. And also is 3D printers. I think they're the most kind of most creative, because you can. I mean, I remember 20 years ago. I mean, when we started off 3D, it was a pipe dream to be able to. We were creating 3D models, but they were always 2D images on the screen. And it was always a dream to be able to kind of produce that stuff, but it was so expensive. Like, to get a 3D print in those days would have cost like thousands of pounds. And now for like 50 pence, like I can do a sculpt, and I can kind of 3D print. So this is one I did of, so I can show you this. So this is kind of like a sculpt of my wife that I did. And so it's like I can produce that for like 50 pence now, within a few hours. And it's kind of like, so it just gives you an idea of, how awesome the 3D printer is. I can actually produce something physical from something I've made on the screen. So I would say, yeah, that's the most kind of best sort of kind of equipment that I've used.
That looks so fantastic, like producing so many pieces in just a couple of hours. I think it's now a time we can actually showcase some of your work that you have done. So probably we can share a video of your work, Taran. I'm just gonna play the first one.
Yeah, so I think this is the video from the Kickstarter campaign that we did. And so to be able to explain to people what we were doing, we had to create a video explaining kind of what it is that we're trying to create. So my friend Diljit helped me kind of create this video. It's very difficult, because I was supposed to stand in front of a camera and talk about what I was doing, and I tried it, and I just couldn't do it. It was really terrible. So in the end, I just kind of kept it about the story and about the project that we were trying to make. So that's the Cintiq tablet that I was talking about. So the actual screen that you can actually paint onto the 3D object on. So going back to the Shahid Singh stories, this is about by Garja Singh, by Bota Singh, Garja Singh story. So it's all about kind of retelling these stories, but in a different way, making sure that we remember these people by giving them like a presence as well. So trying to infuse their kind of spirit and what they kind of what the kind of strengths that they had, and trying to communicate it via kind of 3D models. So there's a really interesting story actually about somebody who bought one of the statues. He didn't realize that it was actually based on someone. So when we went to his house to deliver, he bought actually one of the bronze ones. And when we gave it to him, and he had a space all set for it and that, and he sat down and he said, "Oh, so who is it modeled on? Anyone?" And my friend Diljit, he said, basically it's modeled on by Garja Singh, who's from our history, and his granddad was sitting down as well in the same room, and his granddad started telling the story of by Garja Singh, and I thought that was the whole point of doing it, was that people start to question who are these people, who was it, and people start to tell these stories, because like that Shabad says in there, Babaniya Kahaniya Put Saput Karen, it's those stories and those kind of stories we tell our children, which will inspire them to be like great, like our ancestors. So all of these images that are coming up in it as well now, these weren't actually finished. We didn't actually have a finished piece then. So I kind of rendered these so they looked real, just to give people. So this was like just visualizations showing people this is what it might look like. And every piece, every weapon was actually modeled on an object from history that we had. So every sword was kind of modeled on an actual sword. The shield was kind of accurate. So they were all from that same time period. So it all matched.
Awesome. That's so creative kind of work that we have seen in 3D technology, and especially with all the Sikh art that you have done. I think that's really unique. And I don't think we have anywhere seen that kind of work in Australia for now. So how common, so how popular, I can say, this kind of work is now outside UK? And I saw some of your videos where the work has been actually digitized, and we saw that in Sikh Museum and in some of the work that you have done. So outside UK, where have you taken your work?
Yeah, so we've been doing some work in Canada recently. A lot of actually the Indian kind of newspapers and TV stations have kind of picked up on the work as well. And I think it kind of came about because I think we realize as well as any, our history is quite scattered, our objects, our relics. When the British took over the Punjab in India, they kind of raided Maharaja Ranjeet Singh's Dosh Khana, and they kind of sent a lot of the objects back to here. Now, a lot of those objects were lost along the way, or they were kind of scattered into private collections. Even a lot of the Guru's items exist here in the UK, but they're in private collections, and nobody wants to talk about them because they're scared about, people, wanting those items back, or they're scared about, the backlash that they might have. So we kind of saw this as a way of kind of saying that, okay, so we've gone to a few private collectors and said, listen, we don't want to take your stuff off you. We know it's precious to you, but let us scan it in and let us share it with the public so they can get a chance to see it. And this kind of new way of doing it, it hasn't been done before, especially with Sikh relics. And a lot of the museums are just starting to kind of look at this technology now. So we're using different kind of ways of doing this. We're using a technique called photogrammetry, which allows us to take photographs of an object and then generate a 3D model from it. And we're also using 3D scanners, but also we have knowledge of real-time kind of 3D production, and that's what my specialism has been for the last 10 years, is producing objects that will work on a web page, on a mobile phone, on a VR headset. So we've been able to get these really complicated objects and put them into a mobile phone VR headset. And what that means is that anyone around the world can just open up a web page, bring up Guru Gobind Singh Ji's Charena, and actually spin it around, start having a look at it, starting to read the Bani on it. And we've done this for many items, and we've shown as a proof of concept in our last project that this can be done and it can work. So we're getting a lot of interest from kind of like America. We're getting a lot of interest from India, where people are saying, oh, look, we've got these relics. Could you digitize these? What it means is, and this is why it's such a compelling proposition, is because if you think about it, we've got one object and it's stuck in one place, and to transport that object, to ensure it, to kind of make sure that it's kind of conserved properly as well, because these are historic items. We've got a lot of buildings in Pakistan and India that have been kind of painted over. A lot of the historic kind of, aspects of those buildings have been destroyed. How can we kind of preserve that? Now, there's a big story about when ISIS kind of attacked in Syria, they demolished a lot of the heritage sites. And what some of the people came out and did was they started to 3D scan those relics so that they could preserve them. So even if they got destroyed, there's some record, and it's actually a 3D record. And the brilliant thing about 3D is that you can actually view it in so many different ways. So you can view it on your screen, you can put a VR headset, and you can walk through that space. So we're kind of talking to people in India at the moment about recreating some of the spaces, and we've even got like a rough model of the Harmandir Sahib as well that we've done that you can walk around. And so it's kind of exploded after that project. But I think before that, when we were talking to people, we were telling people, oh look, I could create the thing in 3D. And this has been like for many years I've been saying this to people, but nobody's really kind of taken notice. People think that, they don't really understand the technology, so they don't really kind of listen to you. But I think you have to show people, and that's the only way to kind of make people understand and make them take notice, is to actually produce something. And with the last project that we did, the Anglo-Sikh Virtual Museum, we were able to kind of show people what it was capable of, what we could do with it. And I think that is what's made people around the world kind of be interested in what we're doing. And in a lot of ways, we're kind of even more advanced than a lot of the museums out there, the kind of work that we're doing, because even they are not producing the type of quality and the type of accessibility that we've been able to get with our objects. Because we can take one object and we can kind of, rather than it just being a museum room that only 100 or 1,000 people. So in that first exhibition in 2017, we had 20,000 people come to that exhibition. But we put a 3D object online and it's had like 20,000 hits, 20,000 views in the space of a day. So it kind of gives you an idea of the kind of the way that you can kind of approach and access more people around the world.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I also think that obviously with being in the colouring project as well, people are visual, so they want to see actual work before they listen to you. So when you show people your work, that's when they start thinking and visualizing and imagining, oh, actually this makes sense and it looks fantastic, and it's out of your imagination. Because even seeing your work now, I've just thought, wow, actually I didn't even know that was that detailed. So even I'm learning today. But my question to you is, when you have a complex graphic that you've designed, how do you overcome any issues? Like, who do you go to that helps you or guides you?
So we're very lucky at the moment that we've got such an amazing resource online. So while the internet has a lot of bad things on it, there's a lot of good things on it if we spend our time, on finding those great things on the internet. And there's a lot of great experts, a lot of very kind people who put their information online. So if they learn something, and I'm from the open source community where we were always trying to find kind of cheap ways to do things because we couldn't afford expensive software. We weren't big companies. And so we would kind of share our ideas, share our tutorials and help people. And so I've actually got a community of people around me who do similar work, and we kind of helped each other. We always help each other out. So if anyone's stuck on a project, we kind of speak to each other. We kind of show each other our work, get feedback, and all this stuff is really important. So it's kind of like having a 3D Sangat. So I've got my own little 3D Sangat that I kind of go to, who kind of inspire me, and we help out. And anyone new who comes into that Sangat, and even other people who have come to us and said, we're interested, we're very open with our ideas and our skills. We want people to take on this, this technology. And, we want people to learn. So anyone who's ever contacted us and said, we're interested in this, and kind of and also what inspires me is when people see the artwork and it inspires them to get into Sikhi or to learn more about Sikhi. That's what pushes you the most, really, at the end of the day. And when we have technical issues, it's more like experimentation. It's let's see. And we've just been doing this recently where we've had to create we're working on a job at the moment where we're creating a 3D scan, and we've got to put this client into a real-time application online. So it's kind of very hard because we've got to make sure that we've got his likeness, but we've also got to make sure it's efficient online. Then we've got to do the animation. We've got to make sure the facial features all match and everything. So we're kind of doing a lot of experimentation. And the way I say is you're kind of failing forward. So you keep trying and you just don't give up on it. And I think that's a lesson that we learn from our shaheeds and our history as well, that they never gave up yet. So no matter what you come up against, you don't give up on it. And so some things do take kind of months. Some things do take years to grasp or to master. And I think you've got to see it as a long-term journey. It's got to be something that, I love doing this and I'm going to carry on doing this no matter. And the thing is, I've given up many times. So there's many times where I just thought, this is just too much here. I'm not getting anywhere. And my work's not good enough, and you get really kind of down about it. You get kind of disheartened, and then you kind of give up on it. But what I found is after about a week or 2 weeks, I'd always come back to it again. Yeah. And so I just thought, let's just cut cut it out, yeah. And I know that I'm going to come back to it anyway. I know that I'm going to be compelled to do it. And, I might as well just carry on doing it. And I might as well, when you reach those failures, just keep going and say, it's going to take time. Now, when I teach people, like teach my kids as well, my kids are really, quite into art as well. And when I teach them now, I kind of say to them to have this sort of kind of like resilience, as in don't worry too much about it. Just keep trying, keep going, like in it.
Sure. That's really great. And Taran, it's time for us to play another video and fantastic work that you have done. So we'll just like to share it with the audience. We'll just play the video now. So that was another creation of yours. So Taran, how many people are working with you for all this work? Or is it like something a home business, or like, how you're doing all this?
Yeah, so up until now, I've kind of been working pretty much alone up until last year. So I was just been working on loan, doing little projects, doing freelance work on the side while working as well. So I would kind of go to work 5 days a week. So I would work for an engineering company doing VR production. And then I would come home evenings and weekends, and that's where I did the garjassing and the bifodjassing. And so now that we've actually, I decided, I decided last year that if I really want to do, kind of take this stuff seriously, that I'm going to have to kind of go out on a limb and kind of, make a commitment. So I decided to leave my job, which was a big kind of decision. I spoke to my family, my wife and everything. We worked it out how we were going to do this. And, then I left work last year and I've been trying to kind of, run the business, but a lot of it is like going out there and teaching people about the technology. And as a result of that, like we've done some work for, a Canadian company. We've done some work for kind of companies in the Middle East as well. I got to do some work for actually Hajur Sahib as well. So they had a frame that they had in Hajur Sahib, and they wanted it. It was being warped, so it's quite an old frame, and we were able to 3D scan it, and I was able to resculpt the details, send it to Italy for it to get reprinted, and so that was installed in Hajur Sahib a few years ago in Diwali. So yeah, I think at the moment there's about 4 of us, but I think by next year we'll probably grow to a team of 7 or 8. And as we keep showing our work, and as we keep showing people what's possible, we're getting more and more inquiries from different companies, and they're coming to us and saying, "Oh, we saw this work that you did," and we're publishing our work online a lot more now. So I've never really been a social media person. I'm more of a private person. I don't really like I'm not being very good at social media or being out there and stuff like that. So now that we've got like a business and a strategy, it's become a lot easier, because it kind of takes you out of the equation. It's more about the work. So that's what I find a bit easier. So so there's 4 at the moment, and we're going to hopefully grow to about 8 by next year, we're hoping.
That's amazing. I remember Taran Singh when we met, was it last year or the year before, with the art team?
Yeah.
And you were sitting there in the corner, Mr. Singh, and you were really shy, and I was just like, oh, he doesn't talk much. But yeah, social media is a full-time job in itself. I would know. Sharon Benji has said, well done, Taran. It's absolutely amazing. My brother also has a 3D company in California, and if you want to connect with him, let her know. So she's also based in Birmingham. Deep Singh has asked, is it a rewarding career that you've chosen?
Yeah, definitely. I would say it's rewarding. It's very difficult. You've got to see it as a long-term thing. It's not a quick fix. It's not one of them things that I'm going to do this for about a couple of months and then I'm going to learn it and I'm going to produce some stuff. Yeah, it's going to be a long-term thing. So it usually takes we usually say 6 months to a year to get kind of, at the basic level, and then 2 years you start to become more proficient. But obviously the more time you put in, and like with any artwork, the more you put into it is the more you get out. But it is a long-term thing. But what I usually say to people who get started, and we've actually started doing training now for young people. So we mentor young people who come into our business as apprentices, and we've started to teach them. And we've actually been approached by training companies now to start mentoring young people. Because the problem is when they're coming out of university or college, they just don't have the skills that they need. So we've been able to give them like production experience, so working in actual business, producing actual client work. So it's very rewarding, and but it's a lot of hard work. But I always say, if you do something that you enjoy, it doesn't feel like hard work. Like, it doesn't feel like work. It's just your kind of effort you're putting in, and you get your results at the end anyway.
Awesome. So Taran, you mentioned before that this work is very widely used in real estate as well, showcasing buildings and other kind of stuff. I'm interested to know, like, in the scope of Sikhi itself and for the prachar of Sikhi, what do you see as the scope of this kind of work? Definitely, we can see that as a 3D animation in movies as well. What other as a future scope you see of this kind of work?
So I see a lot more kind of 3D objects becoming 3D scans of the environment. So being able to visit kind of asthans in India and Pakistan. So I see it being used for that purpose. And we've been talking about this for a while, but it's only now that people are starting to understand once they've seen the proof of concept. So I see it being used there. I see it being used for animations. And one thing that I'm really interested in is games. So creating games for young people where they can play through and learn about history. I've been talking about that for like 20 years and like failing at it a lot. So I really wanted to make a computer game about 20 years ago when I was young, and I'm not really understanding fully what it kind of entailed. And I kind of understand it a bit more now. We're at a stage where we could do it. So I can produce the characters, we can produce the animations, and it's just about having that time now. And part of me starting the business was that if I can start the business that can kind of pay the bills and, keep the family running, and then that would free up more of my time to be able to work on Sikhi stuff. So the aim has always been to produce more Sikhi content, really. The business has always been like a way to kind of learn and get to that point so that we can start doing that. So we're still on that journey, but Maharaj's Kirpa, we're getting there slowly. And I've learned, I think when I was young, I was very kind of impatient. I wanted things to happen. And when I meet young people now, especially like my kids, they're learning about artwork now, they're kind of like, they're very impatient. They want things to happen very quickly. And I'm like saying, you know what, this is one of them things. And even the Guru says that, things will take time, Sej, then I'll, slowly and with comfort. With ease, we should step forward, and not try to push it so much. And I've learned, as getting older, that's one thing I've learned that's really helped, is to just be patient and let it take its time. It's going to take time to produce something. Sometimes we want things to happen before, like you'll get I've got a 6-year-old at home who wants to drive a car. He's saying, Dad, when am I going to be able to drive a car? And I'm saying, you're going to have to wait, you know what I mean? And there's a reason for that. And I think even with our personal journeys in our Sikhi and our artwork, and I know, Benji, you do a lot of Sikhi artwork as well, and it's really great prachar that you do for young people. And I think even in that, we always have what we want to be able to achieve, but it's just going to take time for us to get us there. And I think that patience is really important in terms of, kind of on our journey. And I think we should put more emphasis in enjoying what you're doing, enjoy that journey, enjoy what you're working on. And don't worry if things are late, or like I've been working on this Singhni statue for 2 years. I was supposed to release it 2 years ago, but I wasn't very happy with it. So I kind of just thought, Jaltika, I'll just wait and see. And we'll let it happen when it's going to happen. Because when it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Like the Biford adjusting statue that you just showed recently, I mean, like usually takes me like 3 to 6 months to produce a statue. That one happened in about a week. And it was because there was an exhibition happening in Coventry about Biford adjusting. It was the anniversary of their kind of, Shahidi. And I've always wanted to do a Biford Jussing sculpture. I love Biford Jussing. I just love, his spirit and his personality and the way that he was. It was just such an amazing kind of personality. And I've always just thought in my mind, I really want to do a Biford Jussing statue. And so when they told me they were going to do an exhibition, and I was speaking to my friend Cam, and he was going to do an artwork as well, and I was like, look, the exhibition's in like 2-3 weeks time, let's quickly do something in it. And I didn't know what I was going to be able to produce in that time, but it just happened so quickly. And it just kind of, sometimes it just happens when it's meant to happen, and I think you just got to accept that. So that's one of my favorite ones.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I like how you said earlier about work is done, but it's not finished. So obviously, like even with all the books that I create with seat coloring, I'm never happy with them. At the end of
Yeah.
them, I'm always like, I could do this. If I look back at the first one, I'm like, I shouldn't have done it like that. But you have to get it
Yeah.
done. So I wanted to ask you, with you doing production, 3D production, from CQ based, do you also do any if people ask for personalized? But anything that personalized to them as well.
We tend. I tend not to any. I've what it is. We've got you. You'll find that you've got limited time, and like I've had people say to me like, can you do a statue of like my grandfather or whatever? And I usually like tend to say no because I'm just not interested in that. I would rather spend that time like doing statues of like Shahid Singh's really, you know, and so yeah, I think when it comes to work, I think with work kind of production, it's kind of I see it as two different. I keep it separate, like, and it's so when we're doing work and stuff, and sometimes it kind of crosses over. But yeah, I tend to keep it where work is production. I tend to be detached from that work a bit more. So where it's for a client, and I think this is where I think artists fail when they're starting to try to build a business out of their kind of work, is that it's too personalized to them. When I'm working for a client, it's about understanding what they're trying to produce, what they're trying to communicate, and understanding what their brief is. And I think that's very, very important. Sometimes you have to detach yourself from that work, because sometimes we think, oh, I want to do it a certain way, but the client wants something else. You got to, and I think that's kind of like the biggest challenge. I'm not the best 3D artist out there. There's like so many people who are better than me. But one thing I found that I'm really good at is speaking and listening to the clients, understanding what it is that they're trying to do and where they're trying to go, and then giving them a proposal or an idea that kind of meets their objectives. And I think to do that, you have to detach yourself from your work. And, sometimes the work that I produce isn't like something that I'm interested in, or something that I'm maybe I think it should be done a certain way, or I would do it a certain way, but it's not about me. It's about the client and what they're trying to communicate. And I think you have to be detached when you're doing like personalized work for people. But in terms of like when it comes to like the statue and the Sikhi work, I tend to keep it kind of more like Sikhi based rather than personal based, really.
No, I think that's a great decision, because with the limited time and the kind of work that you are doing, I think it depends upon the resourcing as well. So it's a good decision considering all that. We have one more video which we would like to share for today, and I'll just like to bring that on my screen.
Hello and welcome to the Anglo-Sikh Virtual Museum. My name is Gurinder Singh Man. I'm head of the Sikh Museum Initiative. I'm joined here today with Taran Singh from Taran 3D, and today we are going to be talking about the Anglo-Sikh Virtual Museum. The first object we want to discuss is what we call the Charena. So the word Charena means in Persian is 4 mirrors. So essentially it's the breastplate, and eventually Maharaja Ranjeet Singh appropriating the actual Kohinoor diamond core. So just to kind of give a bit of provenance to this as well. Safia has got the chainmail which drops down on this particular object. Again, what Taran is showing is like with our technology, we can actually pick up the standard and actually move it around as well. So just giving it that kind of, that great immersive experience. Next, we're going to move on to what we call the Avatar sword. And essentially this particular sword demonstrates the avatars of Vishnu. But what we have on one of the cartouche panels is Guru Nanak himself. We've actually kind of done examples where we've actually had the sword side by side with the actual touchscreen as well, just kind of show the kind of resemblance of the real sword compared with the digital version as well. And the Sikh Museum Initiative, in conjunction with Taran 3D, is now working on digitizing objects. And we'd also like to say a great thank you to the Heritage Lottery Fund who's funded this project, and to actually say thanks very much for an Indian summer. Thank you.
That's awesome to see that. Then I have one more question. So what suggestions would you have to encourage more youngsters or interested individuals who want to pursue a career in 3D art?
Yeah, so I would say to them, there's a lot of resources online, a lot of free software online as well that you can get hold of. Start downloading and start playing around with it. That's what I would say. Start creating things. What we say is create simple things, create a pen, create things that are around you and start to produce those. Same way you do with drawing. You sit someone with a pencil and you say, draw something simple, and start very simple and start to create 3D objects, start to light it and render it and start to produce your work and start publishing it. Show it to, if you can, like have sort of like a 3D Sangat and show them your work and kind of get feedback and get ideas from other people. And the community is very, very kind of the community is very, very kind in terms of feedback and helping you move forward. So I've got a lot of people around who are willing to help on forums and online spaces. And so that's how I would say, to start off, really start downloading software, start having a go at it, experimenting with it.
No, that's true. The art world out there is really generous and helpful. I find that when someone wants to design a coloring book, I always tell them pen and paper first, and then digitalize it later. Once you get into the whole rhythm of it, it starts off with slow process, and then so it's all about visual. But Taran Singh, today, I mean, we would like to thank you so much for your time. It's been amazing with your knowledge, your technical skills, and you are an empowerment as a key individual in the Sikh community here, especially in the UK. Thank you so much for that. If there is anyone who is interested in 3D art or you want to know more about this field, please get in touch with Taran, who can perhaps help you, support you, or guide you on this journey. Taran, where can people find you?
You can find us on social media. If you just do a search for Taran 3D, you'll find us there, and just get in touch however is convenient for you.
He's very famous.
Not really, no. Not in my house.
I just typed Taran 3D and I found heaps of stuff. So that's really interesting. Yes. No, thank you so much, Taran. That was really interesting to know, and especially just to see all this technology work happening for the Sikhi Prachar as well. And we would like to see more youth coming and opting for this technology and using it for Sikhi Prachar, as well as in their own professional circle as well. That's really great. Any final words, Penji?
No, I thought it was amazing. I've met Taran in person. He's so humble and quiet. But he's really awesome. His work speaks volumes to me, so I think it's amazing. Then what's your website so people can also find you there as well?
Yes, so our website at the moment is www.taran3d.com.
Awesome. Did you have anything else you want to comment on here today, then?
No, I just want to say thank you for calling me on, and it's been really great talking to you guys. So thank you very much. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa,
Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Bye.